Oh, it's loud. Oh, wow, that's from a while ago. Hi. I'm so excited. I think this would work, though. Ooh, this is old. With Justin Eddy. I should tell Victoria. Hi, Serena. Who else is here? How are you guys? One more Saturday night. I was playing something else, but this is a cover I did with my friend Justin Eddy like 10 years ago. Just play it really low so we don't want to get... Serena, will you please be on the show sometime? I even got a groovy light going on, but not, I need an extension cord. I need one of those big orange, no I don't. You guys, yes, Daniel, that's very true. Hi. Crazy day. Crazy day. Let me see, I have to light my candle. So I have my lighting. There's a lot of light going on in here. Here. Today I had my crown with Kim Dinas, cozy. I didn't know it was her birthday yesterday because, you know, sometimes Facebook, Roy Rodriguez, one of my oldest friends in the world. Hi. My brother. We've known each other since kindergarten. How are you, sir? Are you in Detroit? Are you sipping? Sheltering in place, as they say? Okay, I did that. I lit the candle. Hi, Robert Temple. Are you making beautiful lamps? I know. I put my makeup on with you guys because I don't really wear makeup, but gotta get the bronzer. Okay, everything's all good. Got my tea. Hi. Did you happen to see my post tonight on Facebook? Anybody? Bueller? It's all true. I have this pantry. See, I don't spend a lot of time here, but I have this pantry that just has a lot of stuff in it. I have a lot of stuff. I like my stuff because I know I need it sometimes, and I don't know when I'm going to need it, but I use it. I pulled everything out of this. All right, Mama Grace is on. Yay, Mama. Hi, I love you. I pulled everything out of this cupboard. It's pretty tall. It's got glassware in it, and jars, and lentils, and I had food that I was wanting to put in there, you know, all my dry goods and stuff. Hi, Julie. And I just kept pulling stuff out. Hello, Margaret. Nice to see you here. Wow, we have coast to coast going now. So I pull everything out of this cupboard and keep pulling stuff out. It's a deep cupboard. And then I put all my food in, all my broths and my, you know, garbanzo beans and my oysters. And then I start finding stuff. I'm like, oh, cool. Oh, right on. Oh, cool. And then I find this box that my dad, I have a lot of art up on the walls, and some of it's like kind of like we had to use a little double back tape in some places. Hi, John. And I find these tools of my father's. Just a container with a screwdriver and stuff to hang stuff, and those those hanging, you know, those 3M hang things. I don't think they really work. Nails and his hammer and a screwdriver. And he had, you know, when I say his hammer, he had 20 hammers. So I have, you know, this other hammer. And then I pull out this box. Hey, Janelle Michelle Burdell. In this box, I almost want to go get it, but then it means I got to get up and I'm really comfortable. In this box, hi Sibylla Savage, was an industrial sized container of, and I have to digress for a second. My dad, our dad, had this cool label maker, and he would peel off like this. He would peel this label off, and then he'd put his own label on. So in his shelves were all these white and clear containers with, you know, vitamin ADK, or, you know, his toothpaste just said toothpaste on it. Now we're talking, we got India in the house. So there's this big container, big, like from the hospital container of bacterial wipes. And then there's another container of, dare I say it, Lysol wipes. Gloves, a box of gloves, a box of masks, some alcohol, as in isopropyl alcohol, some Dial soap, both a pump and a bar of Dial soap. Hi, Joseph. A roll of toilet paper, some really nice organic medicine from Mendocino County where I used to live, gluten-free pancake mix, and syrup. I know that the box had been there, and my dad helped me put a lot of stuff together in this house. He did most of this house. Sometime I'll give you a tour. But I don't remember making that exact box. So, thanks, Benny. Thanks, Pa Ben. So I call it, because it's got the pancake mix. There's a gluten-free, a brand new bag of gluten-free pancake. I also have 2 other bags of gluten-free pancake mix, and I have my waffle iron. So I call it my pandemic box. He did. He did. I mean, brand new, not open box of gloves, not open box of masks. So anyway, that's what's happening. And then I thought, I need to go out to the cemetery and see what's up. You can't hear me? My volume all the way up, sir. All the way. In fact, I just went down. Somebody said that earlier today. I don't know. I'm doing my best. Hey, Gina Melita. We got New Orleans. We got New York. We have New Jersey. We have lights going on. I have my Bay Area. This could be for you, Gary Lambert. This is like, you know, this is a bridge. We've gone all across a lot of bridges together. Mentally, physically. So anyway, yeah. I got my pandemic box. Can you hear me now? Ooh, can you hear me now? Ooh, ooh, ooh. Lillian's here. She's got her blanket. I got my tie-dye on. This is a different one from the other night, but this is also from Tie-Dye Patty. And then this is a tie-dye silk scarf that another girlfriend of mine that I will have on one of these days. So, yeah. Hi, John. Willits. Yep. Oh, yeah, so there was medicine from Willits in this box, too. And a lighter. Another lighter, so now I have 2. You know. And I have do you have your masks? I have my mask. Goes with my scarf. I'm going to make a phone call. making a phone call to my friend. So I mysteriously, I was gifted a tripod. And I was so excited about the tripod. But it only goes landscape. And I guess I could do that. But then I'd have to get up. And then you would be long. I like it when the person's high. So for tonight, tomorrow we'll try the landscape. For tonight we'll still use my fancy tripod. Because I kind of like it. Right? Oh, I love these. They're my favorite colors. That's why I got the crown. If you saw me with the crown today that Kim Dinas made for me, you would understand. It's either black or this. Heather! Heather! Is there a song with Heather in it? Not yet. I know a girl named Heather who can do your hair and make dinner so well. I know a girl named Heather, and I think she is pretty swell. Good night. But it's only 8:30 in Willits. Good night, John. I know a girl named Julie Jones. She lives in Las Vegas. I don't know why, but I know the way she plays because her husband is a bass player and his name is Derek Jones. But right now I'm looking for Gary Lambert. Why can't I find you now? But I will in a second, and then you'll know how. Ooh, 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 ooh. I'm so excited. Hold on. Hold on.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you tell them apart? Ah, here I am.
Here you are. Show us your friend again.
That's this guy.
Hey, guy.
This was actually my mom's favorite monkey. My mom was a complete like chimp, ape,
Really?
orangutan enthusiast, and she collected little stuffed monkeys, and this was her very favorite, so I'm very fond of it. How's my lighting, Jenna? Am I too bright?
You're a little bright.
Let me see if I can adjust that.
Gary Lambert, you have a beard.
This is it's my quarantine beard.
It's so far out. I love it.
You do dig it?
I dig it.
Excellent.
Little less light, because you have so much light. You have so much light around you anyway.
Hold on.
Oh yeah.
Is that better?
Now it got brighter again.
It got brighter. That's very strange because I've turned the light away from my face. I don't.
You look fine.
I wonder if I can adjust the lighting on my phone. It's maybe my phone screen that's casting the light.
Oh, there you go. Right there.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll live with it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Gary Lambert is in the house.
Hi.
Hi. With a beard. His COVID beard.
It is. It's a little alarming to me because I haven't grown a beard out this much in quite some time, and it's so much whiter than it was the last time.
I bet. But you know what? It's sassy.
Speaking of sassy,
yes.
It's funny you should mention that very word because our friend,
yes,
the sassy one,
yes,
Sharon Donovan, is not on Facebook, but she can watch Facebook Live, I guess. So I told her about this, so she may be out there being sassy and watching us. So hi, Sharon.
Sharon, if you're here. Lillian's looking for Sharon now, too. I haven't seen her come on yet, but she may show up.
Yeah, I don't know if Sharon can actually, since she's not on Facebook, I don't know if she can respond in that.
Well, I'm blowing her lots of kisses just in case she is.
Well, good.
Sharon.
Well, it's so good to see you, Jenna.
Hi.
There you are.
There I am. Hi. Oh yeah,
Hi.
you're much. See, when I cast it onto my iPad, I see your lighting is much darker just between you and I. But yeah, when it comes over here, it's lighter.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well.
But you look good, and I like the hat.
Yeah. I actually I have several hats. I may do some like a little bit of showmanship, costume changes, like you were at a Diana Ross or Cher show.
Yeah,
or something.
I change every day, twice a day. Oh yeah. Well, I do at my gigs too. When I used to do my gigs at Yoshi's, I'd do 2 sets, 2 changes.
Yeah.
No, but Diana does it per song, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, I one of the funniest jobs I ever had in the music industry when I was working for Bill Graham Presents is I was the security guard for Cher's little changing booth on stage.
Really?
Of course, I was not allowed to look I had to look straight ahead because Cher would like finish a song and then she'd come off stage and her dressers would be like pulling, Velcro attached things off of her. So I'd out of the corner of my eye see, a semi-garbed Cher disappear into this little booth, which was refrigerated because her furs were in there, and they had to keep the furs perky. So, and there'd be this flurry of activity, and you'd hear, people say, "Yeah, here's this, put the headdress on, here are the feathers, and then Cher, and of course, all through this, the boy dancers would be vamping. And then Cher would go back out for the next song. So I was Cher's changing booth security guy for one night. It was so thrilling.
Gary, I never knew that. She's my spirit animal.
Cher's?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I love Cher. Oh, wow. So where was that at? Where?
That was the Oakland Coliseum.
Okay.
Early 90s, I would guess.
Where was I? Why wasn't I at that show?
I don't know. I don't only live Cher I've ever. Well, I didn't really see it because I was staring straight ahead backstage, but it seemed like a pretty awesome show from where I was.
Of course, anything at the Coliseum back in the day, yo. How did you first work with Bill Graham?
Well, I moved to the Bay Area with really not much going for me in 1974, like no real prospects. I was open to the idea of like getting gigs as a musician, and I played in some really sort of half-ass bands that never got anywhere, and some slightly better bands, but nothing really totally satisfying. And then I was working the usual, the closest I got to music was working in a couple of record stores. The farthest I got was scooping ice cream at Old Uncle Gaylord's on Piedmont Avenue.
Oh, sure.
The usual, music guys, fate, the day job. But I kept like sending resumes into Bill Graham Presents, and then I had this even more impractical idea that maybe I could work for the Grateful Dead someday. How the hell was that going to happen?
Right.
So,
but you were close. You were in the Bay Area at this point, so. Yeah.
So it was about 9 years of not much happening. Working the little day jobs and playing occasionally live, and then literally weeks before I had gotten totally fed up. I had a plane ticket back to New York. Was ready to move back in 1983 after 9 years. And I got a call from a friend of mine who was the director of publicity and promotion at BGP, and she needed an assistant. And she knew that I had done some writing. I'd done some music journalism. She needed someone to write press releases. And then right around the time I started that job, Bill opened Wolfgang's, great club in North Beach. Mm-hmm. And I got hired there, too, to run the box office on weekends. So I suddenly had 2 jobs in the Bill Graham Presents organization, and that's how that started.
And I love the one story about how you started your production company.
Am I familiar with that story?
When Bill was opening Wolfgang's, was it opening night? And he needed something for the plates, for the dishes, a certain green food. Oh,
the parsley. No, that didn't really have anything to do with me. The thing about the parsley, that was a metaphor that Bill used to turn to. People would ask Bill what distinguished him from other concert promoters.
Okay.
And he said, well, if you go into a restaurant and you order a steak, and they bring you the steak on a cheap plate, and they give you paper napkins and plastic utensils and, just a bare plate. Or if you go into a really nice restaurant with cloth tablecloths and beautiful china, and they bring you the steak and there's a little sprig of parsley on the plate.
Okay.
He said, we put the parsley on the plate.
We put the parsley on the plate.
So Bill's ethos was, and he got that from being a waiter. He started out as a waiter in the Catskills. And so his metaphor there was, you give that little extra bit to the customer, and it's going to the steak is going to taste better, basically. So his attention to detail in producing concerts all proceeded from that. The little things you do to make the experience more pleasant for the customer, the way security treats them as kind of peers rather than security being like scary goons,
right,
as they were at a lot of concerts. Bill sort of invented the whole concept of peer group security, where it was like young people who were like, sympathetic to the audience rather than adversaries to them.
Sure, we are everywhere. We were together. We were the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then didn't you name your production company?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Years later, I did a few shows as Parsley Productions, right. And that was an homage to Bill. That was my little memorial thing to Bill.
I have 2 Bill Graham stories.
Okay.
The very first time I met Bill was at the Greek Theater, and I just so happened to be sitting in a section where he was sitting. Uh-huh. Up near the royalty soundboard chairs, the soundboard, but those particular chairs that are like thrones.
Oh, right.
And I was there, and it wasn't a Dead show; it was something else. Oh, my earring just fell off. And I saw him walk away, and I was attracted to his look because he and my father look a lot alike. They were from that same tribe, and so I saw him walk away, and I'm like, wow, oh, and someone, it was Santana. It was a Santana show, and everybody was, hey, Bill, and we were talking, and he walks away, comes back with 2 huge trays of fruit and vegetables, and passed it out to everybody sitting there in the lawn seats and behind. And then someone goes, that's Bill Graham, and then I'm like, thanks, Bill. And then years later, 1980, it was Chinese New Year at Oakland Coliseum. My mom and dad were there, Nino, Lisa, maybe Mitch was there too. And my dad and I got backstage, and my dad had just been diagnosed diabetic. So, all of a sudden, no sugar, nothing, no sugar. And we were walking backstage, and we walked by Beppler's Pie. They had pies, a pie stand backstage.
Yeah, Beppel's Pie.
Beppel's Pies.
Yeah.
And they had these beautiful pies, and they had a big cherry pie. And my dad said, I want a piece of that pie. And I said, no, Dad, you're diabetic. This was 30 years ago. No, Dad, you're diabetic. He's like, Jenna, I want a piece of pie. Bill and Jerry were walking by at that very moment, and they heard the conversation, and Jerry goes, give that man a piece of pie. Bill walked behind the counter and walked out and gave my dad the whole pie.
Oh, man. That's Bill.
And then we walked back to our seats, and we all ate the pie. Wow, Tony Saunders is here. Melanie DeMora's here. Sybilla's here.
Hi, Sybylla.
Yeah. So, yeah, what a kind and beautiful man that you got to work for then.
He was. You didn't want to be on his bad side, as people sometimes got, because he was fierce. But we had a great relationship. He was an incredible mentor to me. I learned so much from him. The thing he really taught was everyone in the company was instilled with that attention to detail. And that's something that really stuck with me. I can't even go to a concert as a customer anymore without seeing, that aisle's not clear, or,
sure.
That table needs to be cleaned off or whatever, just because it's in me.
Yeah.
Not that I go clean it off the table myself, because I paid money to see this show, but,
How did you get from being her assistant to then writing the almanac?
Oh, that was with Grateful Dead. That was not with Bill Graham.
Right.
The assistant job actually didn't last that long. That was maybe a year, but then I worked at Wolfgang's for about 4 years before the fire that took it out. And then I was kind of freelancing around. I was doing I worked with a guy named Harry Duncan, who I know you know.
Harry.
And we had this little team, this little 3-person team that was about promoting all the music that wasn't mainstream rock. All the stuff that fell between the cracks. We produced all the blues and R&B and soul and reggae and African music and jazz. So, here I was getting to work with the Art Ensemble of Chicago one week, and Muda Baruka the next week, and the Dirty Dozen Brass Band another week, Lee Dorsey. This is incredible. This is like total heaven, and that's also how I met Ornette Coleman.
Okay.
Was producing Ornette shows at Wolfgang's a couple of times, and then at the Fillmore another time, and that's how I became friends with Ornette and DeNardo Coleman, which is absolutely one of the most precious experiences of my life.
Okay.
So after I had worked for BGP for close to 8 years, and I had been I'd been getting to know the Grateful Dead, first as a fan, and, I was one of those guys who was in enough shows that people started recognizing me. And then I did some interviews as a journalist and as a radio person, and sort of was, working my way into the circle, just sort of organically. It wasn't like they had a job for me until they had a job for me. And a friend of mine who worked for the Grateful Dead's merchandising division said, hey, we need somebody to do basically what you were doing at BGP, which is, write press releases for they were starting up their record company again to put out archival recordings and stuff like that. So I got a job with the merchandising branch of Grateful Dead. And as soon as I got there, I said, the Dead used to do this really cool thing of communicating directly with the fans, doing these mailings, sending out little letters to the fans, and sometimes there would be little souvenir kind of things, and occasionally they'd even send you a little 7-inch record that had something from the new album on it. And they had kind of stopped doing that, and the merchandising branch was just putting out a catalog a few times a year. So I said, why don't we give them a little added content? Why don't we, as long as you're doing these mailings, why don't we put a little news in the front? Have a real newsletter that goes out 3 times a year. And that became the Grateful Dead Almanac, and it became this incredibly successful thing. And it also was a smart business thing because they got more people sending in for it, so they got to sell more merchandise. And, it worked out great. And I did that for about 12 years.
Yeah, 12 years.
Yeah. With
the Grateful Dead.
Yeah, and I've never stopped working with or for some offshoot of the band. When Jerry Garcia passed, it was like, okay, well, I guess I'll find another job. They just kept keeping me around, and I wasn't about to complain about that. So, I have continuously worked in one way or another with those guys now for, 1991. It was going on 30 years. It'll be 30 years next year since I got hired by them, and there's always been some gig going on where I was working with or for one of the offshoot bands or individuals in the band or whatever. So Not a bad way to run away and join the circus.
Not a bad way at all, sir. And then at the same time, you were still doing all your other writing and your other musical things, but you're still working for the Dead now. And tell us how that's going.
Yeah, I'm still, I'm on Sirius XM radio every Sunday. Well, now we're not on live for obvious reasons, but I've been doing a Grateful Dead talk show on Sirius XM every Sunday since 2008, I think we started, yeah. We've been going for about 12 years on this radio show. My friend David Gans and I co-host this show, and it's a call-in show. We take calls from listeners, which you can imagine with Deadheads can be kind of an adventure.
It's an adventure. When I was on the show with you that day, it was amazing how detailed people are when they're talking about a particular show or a particular how Jerry's voice was that day, when back at whatever, they know the exact time practically, but it's such a free show, and you were inspiring for me too, so thank you.
Yeah, it's really fun to do. It's very unpredictable, and then we have guests too. Our pal John Mayer has been an incredible supporter of our show from the start. I mean, I met John Mayer one of his first gigs with Dead and Company. They played Madison Square Garden about 3 gigs into their first tour back in 2015. And I was going to interview John so we would have something to play during intermission of our broadcast of the show. So I'm led into John Mayer's dressing room, and the first thing he says, "Oh man, I'm such a big fan of the show." And I had no idea, I mean, we've had a great affinity ever since. And he will text me and say, "Hey, maybe I'll call into the show this Sunday."
That's crazy.
And with so many bands, you have to go through, the hierarchy of publicists and managers, and John basically says, "Hey, this will be fun." He's very into the spontaneous, which means he's the perfect guy for that job.
Well, I remember after Wrigley Field, and we went to that bar.
Right.
And they were all, everybody was there, and John and Bob were kind of in that back room, but still people were hanging out. And when you walked in there, I walked in with you, and John saw you. He was like, Gary. I mean, he was so excited to see you, and I'm like, look at that, my friend. I'm with Gary Lambert, and John was just giddy to see you.
Yeah, we enjoy each other's company, and I'm very extremely pleased by that.
And I love that he wants to learn so much about the culture and the music and the people, and and to continue on what has already been built and add to it in the way that he has. I'm a huge, how big of a fan. I was a fan of his. I saw him at the Fillmore, I don't even know when he first came out.
Right, you've covered his songs.
Yes, I have. I've covered his songs. I love his writing. I love his writing.
And interestingly, I went to see him at the Garden last year, shortly after a Dead and Company tour ended, and you could see what John had absorbed into his musical personality from touring with Dead and Company. Like, his show became a little more, he said he started feeling more like a guy in a band than a front man of a band. Ever since, and that's great. And he's approached the Dead and Company gig with such humility and openness, and not like the rock star who's doing this as a side gig. He's just so immersed in it, and it's a beautiful thing to watch. He's a really amazing person. I'm really glad to have him in our family and to know him.
Yeah, he's great, and I love watching Oteil. And usually, I think the last time Sybil and I saw Oteil was at we were in Jazz Fest 2 years ago, and I think it started at 4 in the morning, and we were out till about 7.
Right.
And and he's just there. Just the people that they've brought together, with Jeff, and it's just so great. It's so great.
Well, and the great thing about Oteil in New Orleans is he's family down there too.
Yeah.
So he's like a great bridge between the Grateful Dead aesthetic and the New Orleans aesthetic and the Atlanta aesthetic. So yeah, it was great. I went with Oteil to the Maple Leaf Bar for Russell Batiste's birthday show, and it was Oteil was running to everybody he knows there, and of course almost everyone on stage was named Baptiste because that's how they roll.
Right.
You know?
So either the Nevilles or the Baptistes or the Marcelluses. Right.
Yeah. So yeah, it was really, it's great to see Oteil in that world too. And when Dead and Company played in New Orleans, George Porter showed up and sat in with them, and Oteil just like stood off to the side and watched while George did his 3 songs, and he was like so, this was like almost like a father and son kind of vibe. It was beautiful to see that.
Well, that's where I would be this weekend, and you would have been there next weekend.
That's right. I think it's time for my first hat change, in fact, because
change hats.
It's relevant. Yeah.
What can I change into?
Hold on. My Cafe Du Monde hat.
Ah.
And I'm sorry I didn't bring beignets, but can't have everything. Oh, by the way, Jenna, you said you were doing this. Tie dye theme tonight.
Yes.
I thought it would be appropriate for me not to wear tie dye because, as you saw in the picture you posted on your page about this thing, I'm the kind of guy who wears a Django Reinhardt shirt to a Dead and Company show. So I brought a little monk. I brought Thelonious.
Nice. I don't think I've ever seen you in tie dye.
It's been a long. I mean, occasionally I'll get like some tie dye as a gift, like with some merch, or like I'll get a Dead and Company shirt that's tie dye. I used to wear it a lot, and then when it became sort of part of the uniform, I rebelled against it.
Sure. Well, this is made by my friend. I'll show you mine. This is made by my friend Patty, tie-dye Patty.
Beautiful. I love tie-dye.
I love this one. I think I have 4 of her dresses, and I'm a super fan. And then Lillian has on her Dyes of the World. She's got her little jacket on, too, tonight. Because Jeff Metzger, who's here somewhere, hi, Jeff, is a huge fan. And we met down in San Pancho, Mexico this year. And today he's the one that said, or last night, everybody wear tie-dye. And he posted on his page today. So I know he's here, too. And yeah, so anyway, tie-dye. But you're wearing
well, I'm the outlier with the Thelonious Monk shirt, but that's okay.
Nice. And,
maybe we should tell the Gary and Jenna origin story.
Go ahead, start it.
Because this is the reason I'm here, and the reason Jenna and I know each other is through a Grateful Dead connection, but also because we are both part of this amazing community of musicians who sort of erase the 3,000 miles between the Bay Area and New York. They interact beautifully. Bay Area people who came to New York still return to the Bay Area to play, and a lot of them originated in Berkeley. Our dear friends like Stephen Bernstein and Peter Apfelbaum and Will Bernard. I've known those guys for like 45 years now, something like that.
Yeah.
Because when I moved to the Bay Area in 1974, a year after that, a family of good friends of mine came to live out there, and the younger son of this family, who I've known since he was a little kid, went to Berkeley High. And this guy's a fantastic piano player, so he got into the Berkeley High Jazz Ensemble. And I went to hear them, and this is all like 15, 16-year-old kids, and I got my mind so blown because the level on which these young people were playing was extraordinary. And that was because the Berkeley High Jazz program was unequaled anywhere in the world. There was a great man named Phil Hardiman who ran it. Before that, the late DJ and jazz critic Herb Wong was involved in getting funding to have music in the Berkeley schools. And not just music, but jazz. So people like Peter Apfelbaum were learning about jazz from elementary school, from kindergarten, basically. They were picking up on stuff. And so by the time they got to high school, their level of understanding and capability with the music. The first time I heard Peter Apfelbaum get up and take a solo, they were doing a fairly standard big band arrangement of Lover Man. And this little kid gets up whose tenor sax is almost as big as he is. And what came out was not a little 15-year-old Jewish kid. It was like someone who had lived, forever. It was like that. It had that experiential kind of thing to it. The playing was so emotional and elemental, but beautifully sophisticated as well. And of course, Peter, 3 years after that, had started the Hieroglyphics Ensemble. It's an amazing big band, and he's been doing amazing things ever since. Anyway, In 1994, the Berkeley School's music program was threatened with extinction because of stupid-ass budget cuts. You know, still the after effects of, you know, all this tax cutting stuff that had gone on during the Reagan era, and Howard Jarvis, this guy who like pushed through this huge tax cut for rich people, and they all took it out of the hide of education and especially arts programs in the school.
Sure.
So what Berkeley hadn't reckoned with was that there was this very well-known alumnus of Berkeley High School who had gotten his start playing jazz in Berkeley High, and his name is Phil Lesh, the bassist for the Grateful Dead, who had some authority, had some clout, had some influence. And he and I put together a benefit. I was working for the Dead by this point, and we put together a benefit at the Berkeley Community Theater, which also happens to be the high school auditorium for Berkeley High School.
Thank you, Sibylla. Sibylla just put a link to the Berkeley High Jazz history.
Excellent. Thanks, Sib. So this concert was all made up of Berkeley High alumni. And the opening half of the concert, Michael Wolff, the piano player, who went on to, at the time, was the band lead for Arsenio Hall. He came back home to Berkeley to play. Country Joe McDonald did a set. I forget who. Oh, and Peter Affelbaum led sort of a modified version of the hieroglyphics. It wasn't the full-on hieroglyphics ensemble. They had some ringers in there, but they played a set. And the second half of the concert was an acoustic Grateful Dead without the drummers. They billed it as Phil Lesh and Friends. It was the first show ever billed as Phil Lesh and Friends.
Was it the first? Okay.
Yeah, because, well, he didn't really start the other Phil Lesh and Friends for a few more years after that. It was a very rare thing of him playing outside the Grateful Dead at that point. And basically that concert and other donations single-handedly saved the Berkeley music programs for a year, but it also brought about enough pressure that the Berkeley City Council, you know, was sort of forced to say, well, yeah, we're not cutting the funding at all. So we're gonna fund the music programs, you know, permanently. So that was a great experience. Anyway, at that concert, after the concert, there was like a big ticket reception, a VIP kind of reception thing, at the Berkeley Veterans Building just across the street, and I went over for that. And I saw this woman who looked familiar to me, and I realized it was someone who had sung with some friends of mine. I've seen her gig, really liked her singing. So I went over and said, "You're Jenna, aren't you?" She said, "Yes," and introduced myself, and that was the beginning of the friendship. Yeah. And then after that, I went to see some of Jenna's gigs on her own, and became a huge fan, as I am to this day.
And I'm a fan of yours, for sure.
So later that year, I had this wild idea. It was coming up on the 20th anniversary of a show that the Grateful Dead did, a very rare and private show they did at the Great American Music Hall in 1975 to celebrate the release of their album Blues for Allah, which is one of my favorite Grateful Dead albums because it's the closest they ever got in a way to the way that Miles Davis and Teo Macero made records. They just went into the studio with just the barest idea of what they wanted to do, and they built music around these little jams and little figures, and then they would like flesh them out into songs instead of writing the songs and taking them on the road and developing them and then going and recording them. So it's an album I really loved, and they had this private party to celebrate its release at the Great American Music Hall in '75.
Were you at that party?
I got to go to it, even though I wasn't yet working for the Dead or for Bill at that point. I just got really lucky because a friend of mine had an extra invitation, and he knew there was no one on earth who would rather be there than me. So that was an amazing experience to see them in that intimate a place. You know, the Great American held about 600, I think, and they didn't invite capacity there. It was maybe 300 people seeing the Grateful Dead, you know, playing all this new music. So the 20th anniversary was coming up, and I said, I want to do something really interesting. I want to stage, you know, on the stage of the Great American Music Hall, a site-specific 20th anniversary celebration, but not have it sound like a Grateful Dead cover band. I want to do it with like a big band with great jazz players and take that music as a springboard to collective improvisation, just write some really simple charts that can then be fleshed out by the players themselves. It didn't work out that way, and we won't go into the details as to why, but one of the first inspirations I had when I was conceiving this thing and getting the personnel together was, I want to hear Jenna Mammina sing this song called Crazy Fingers. And that was that was all I needed for that thing to be a success. That thing happened.
It happened.
It did, and that was the beginning of this continuing wonderful adventure I've had with Jenna. And even though that event went in a direction that we shall not discuss here.
But what was so great about that, so what you guys don't know, is when the event was scheduled,
oh my God, yeah.
We were in rehearsal.
Yes.
We were in rehearsal at the Great American Music Hall.
Yes.
When we found out Jerry had died.
Yeah, the next morning after our first rehearsal, that's when the news broke. So we had to postpone the event till November.
And then we postponed the event, and then it ended up being 2 nights.
Right, because we sold out the first one so fast. Sold out
shows with Stan Franks, Sybilla's husband. The late, great Stan Franks was also on guitar that night, and my parents got to meet him, too.
And Will Bernard and Peter Applebaum, a lot of the same people I talked about. Dizan from the Hieroglyphics on drum.
And Nino was singing. And
that's right.
Yeah, and that's where I remember you telling me, because I remember one night we were at Yoshi's standing in line with Dirk, and you said, I have this idea and I want to talk to you about it. And I go, well, what is it? And you're like, I don't want to talk about it right now, but I have this really interesting concept. And you kept, and then finally, you invited me, and then it did great things. It was an interesting ride, and I got to learn and meet other people in that world, and David Gans, who I watch him, not quite daily, but I watch him a lot on he's playing a lot right now. And you introduced me to a whole other world, so thank you very much. And then after that, I remember even, we went to at least 2 Grateful Dead Christmas parties, and the first one I remember was at Lark Creek Inn.
Yes.
And we were sitting there at the party, and then Sammy Hagar walks up with champagne. I'm like, right. I'm sitting here with all these, and Sammy comes up and goes. First they said all the champagne shut up, and they go, it's from Mr. Hagar. And then he walks up, and I'm like, Sammy's here. And then we went to, help me if this story, we went to the Grateful Dead Christmas party in Marin at a park.
Oh, right. It was that American Legion cabin kind of thing, was it?
Yes. Paul Hansen just popped on here.
Hey, Paul.
You love Paul. Hi, Paul.
Another veteran of the Hieroglyphics Ensemble.
We were just, if you weren't on 5 minutes ago, we were talking about when Gary first heard Peter, and he was probably part of that Berkeley High Jazz Band too, I'm sure. Paul.
I'm not sure which, like some guys were a year before I was there, some were a couple of years. I mean, the people who came through Berkeley High, if you think of it, Joshua Redmond, David Murray, Craig Handy, Benny Green. It's an amazing legacy that Phil Hardiman and the other people who started that program built. And I'm still friends with so many of those musicians.
It's so great to see everybody on both coasts. But getting back to that day, you invited me to the party, and Robert Hunter played at the party.
That's right, Robert Hunter and David Nelson. Wow. Yeah, we saw some things.
We saw some things, and we continue to. Now we meet sometimes. Gary, I'm going to be in New York. What's the name of that restaurant that we went to the last time I was there?
Oh, Red Farm? Oh, I love that place.
You guys, if you're ever, next time you're in Manhattan, Red Farm. Right,
Broadway in the high 70s, I think, 78, 77.
I think it's some of the best food I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
Really.
It's this sort of like, it's revisionist Chinese food. It's not, they're not trying to do like, they're rooted in the tradition, but they can also play outside the chain.
Oh, it's so good. So yeah, when Gary's in New York, I get there. We have at least one meal together, if not seeing. And by the way, Stephen Bernstein is going to be my guest tomorrow night.
Oh man! Well, first of all, Stephen Bernstein, in addition to being a ridiculous musical genius, arranger, composer, all around subversive, he's also one of the funniest human beings on earth.
Funny.
So
I can't wait.
If he just wanted to drop music and be a stand-up comic, he could do it anytime, but I'm glad he's not going to drop music.
Oh, and also Melanie DeMore just mentioned Quito Gamble from Berkeley High. I'm trying to think. And who's Sibylla, what's her name? That's the band director now?
We'll find out.
Yeah. And another friend of mine just agreed about Red Farm. But yeah, so Steven's here tomorrow night, and you and I have all these different connections, because then you come back to the Bay Area, and I'm in the Bay Area, and then we go, then Russ and Carol, it just spirals off into all these.
That's right, Russ Jennings, who Jenna stays with when she's in New York very often.
I just saw them in Mexico. So,
right, he was a colleague of mine at KPFA, where I did some radio for a bunch of years. So it's incredible, and the shift, the community that sort of became portable and came back here, and some of them became pivotal figures in the downtown scene here. Stephen Bernstein, especially. Stephen came back earlier than most people. He came back in the early 80s. Mm-hmm. And, he landed in an amazing circle of musicians. Some of the, was around in the group that founded the Factory in the late 80s. And, of course, no one worked more closely with the great Hal Wilner, who just left us, than Stephen.
Yeah.
And I'm still feeling that in a big way. But the great thing for me is, I started becoming more bi-coastal. I sort of done everything I needed to do in the Bay Area, and I was longing for New York, and my visits here would become longer and longer. But then I found out I wasn't losing my community at all. It was following me here, one by one. Peter Applebaum moved here. Will Bernard moved here. So many of my favorite players in the New York scene now have Bay Area roots and travel very freely back. And no one's traveling very freely right now, but travel very freely between the two when they can.
And then we all started. Then I was doing the New Orleanian thing, and then Will's doing that. Will and I are always like, I'm playing here tonight. Well, I'm playing here tonight. Come by my show. Come. So we have that whole scene happening too.
Yes, last year Jazz Fest is, it's all my friends are down here now.
Isn't that fun?
And then Phil Lesh comes by to see Will Bernard play. And it's just, my worlds have converged in so many ways.
Yeah, it's great. Sarah Klein is her name.
Okay.
She's head of the jazz department at Berkeley High now. Sarah Klein. She's incredible. I just couldn't think of her name. And
great. I'm glad they're carrying it on. I mean, Phil Hardiman was a tough act to follow, but I'm really glad that they are.
Well, Sarah's going to be a tough act to follow too, and hope she stays there for a very long time, because she's doing great things with the program as well.
Wonderful. Glad to hear it.
Yeah, I'm still just giddy that you're here. I can't believe it. What's your next project? What's happening while you're growing, besides growing this hot beard that you got going on? It's great.
Right.
You might want to change hats. Do you have another hat?
Yeah, sure. So I'll do a little Bay Area love now. Hold on.
Thank you, Gary.
City Lights Books.
City Lights. Oh, I think they made enough money to hold on for a while now.
They did incredibly. They were threatened because they've been closed, and they don't do enough mail order business and all that. One of the greatest cultural treasures on the planet, City Lights Books, founded by Lawrence Ferlinghetti, an absolute epicenter of the beat movement. They published Allen Ginsberg's Howl, and they got arrested for it, for obscenity, and they won that obscenity trial. And
they won that obscenity trial through my friend Al Bendick.
Right. So they were in extreme jeopardy of extinction, and there is no way that City Lights books can close. That's just impermissible. And they started a GoFundMe, GoFundMe, and they surpassed their goal of $300,000 in a day and a half, which is incredible. That is how revered this bookstore is and how much people value it. And I think they went well over. They may have come close to doubling it. So,
which that should be what happens. You know, that's an important part of the city right there. That whole little, I mean, North Beach, but that corner right there. There's so much Specs and where it was Enrico's and
right.
And that was the scene. That's where I cut my teeth, really, in that area.
Yeah.
But, and during the breaks, we'd go to City Lights. Some of the guys would go to I'd go to City Lights, and a couple of the guys would go to the strip clubs around the corner. But
right.
What do you do? So
North Beach is one of the. I mean, San Francisco's been through a lot.
Yeah. Of
negative changes.
Yeah.
And it's part of what has driven a lot of musicians to other places, unfortunately. Yeah. But North Beach is still a community that still has a lot of its character, and City Lights is absolutely integral to that. So keep it up.
Well, that's a cool hat.
Yeah.
So what's your next move? Are you writing? Are you?
Well, there's ongoing stuff. You know, it's amazing. The Grateful Dead and its extensions keep throwing me stuff to do, and I ain't turning it down. So even though I can't be doing my radio show live, we are picking out reruns, and what we do, David Gans and I interact with the fans on the Tales from the Golden Road Facebook page every Sunday during the time that we would be on the air. And we are going to generate some new programming, not live with the phone-in stuff, because we can't do that unless there are engineers in the building, and we can't ask people to, you know, put themselves at risk like that. So we are going to produce some recorded stuff. We're working on one right now, and so we'll still do some of the reruns, and we'll also try to mix in some original programming. But what I've been doing for the Grateful Dead organization proper and for Dead & Company is for about the past year or so, Dead & Company, when they come off tour, will then make those shows available, make the recordings of those shows available. And I've been sort of curating that. Like, I will pick out selected tracks to highlight, and I'll write kind of the equivalent of liner notes that go onto the website. And now, in addition to selling downloads, they're putting whole tours on all the major streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music and all that stuff. So people can just stream it if they have a subscription, or they can buy a la carte downloads if they're not subscribers. And it's really cool that, you know, the interest is remaining high. So I've been kind of helping to curate and write up that stuff. And then every Friday for the last 3 weeks, and it's going to go on for as long as people are confined to home, the Grateful Dead are doing this series called Shakedown Stream, which is a webcast of either well-known Grateful Dead video or film material. Like one week we did the Grateful Dead movie, the theatrical movie that people know pretty well. But last night, for example, we put out a show that had never been released in any form from Ohio in 1993. And we're going to be doing that for, as I said, as long as people have to stick around at home and don't have concerts to go to. So, and I'm the co-host of we do a little pre-show starting about a half hour before the video kicks in, the concert footage video. I co-host it with David Lemieux, who's the Grateful Dead's archivist, who's been putting out all the amazing box sets and archival releases. He does a great job.
How do people find that?
And we have
How do people find this?
You go to the Grateful Dead YouTube channel every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And it's youtube.com/Grateful Dead. And if you go there on Friday a little before 8, it'll be right at the top of the page. It'll be obvious that that's where you find it. And we've had guests. The first week we did this, Mickey Hart did a recorded greeting. The second week we had Bill Walton, which was a complete blast because basically you say, Bill, how are you? And you get about 20 minutes. I mean,
well, when you introduced me to Bill, I have that photo of the three of us. That was super fun, and we sat there and talked for a long time. He made me take my Warriors hat off.
That's right, at Wrigley Field, the same place where you took the picture that's on your page today. Bill is amazing. Bill is like this incredible volcano of enthusiasm for the Grateful Dead and for Deadheads and all that. Yeah, so it's great to have him on the show. Last night we had a really terrific writer and Deadhead named Jesse Jarnow, who's a really good writer and journalist, author of several good books. And next Friday we're having Donna Jean Godchaux.
Wow.
The woman who cracked the glass ceiling in the Grateful Dead, the only woman member of the Grateful Dead. And that's really going to be fun because she's one of my favorite people. Yeah. Haven't had a chance to talk to her in a while. So next Friday, 8 p.m., youtube.com/Grateful Dead. And you'll spend about a half hour with Donna Jean, and then you will see the one we're showing next Friday is The Closing of Winterland, which is a great video. So check it out.
Yeah, and Melanie DeMore she posted too, like, rest in peace Fillmore District. You know, you go into the city now and all these places where I feel like I've been there with people that aren't from the Bay Area, and I used to, back in the day, I feel like, you know, I'm like this, but we were back in the 90s, back in the 80s we were playing here, and in the 90s we played at all these clubs, and now they're all boxes with Whole Foods underneath them.
Oh yeah, Slim's just closed. I mean, they
done.
Yeah, it's and Slim's is another club I had some history with. I did some work there, in the few years after they opened, and that was the early days of Slim's was amazing. The eclecticism of the booking, and that was Harry Duncan did a lot of that. So yeah, it's rough times for nightlife in San Francisco. The thing about New York is that stuff happens to neighborhoods. You know, that gentrification happens and rents happen, and there are terrible things about New York, but New York is big enough and resilient enough that the scene will pop up somewhere else. You know, we had that when the Knitting Factory closed, and then Tonic opened, and then Tonic closed, and the Stone opened. You know, so there are people out there. There's a real grassroots in New York that will not let the music lose its home, and that's a tremendous thing. It's getting harder and harder, and rents are getting higher and higher, and you know, it should not be minimized how challenging it is. But I'm really proud of the community here, and I'm also proud of the musical community, the way it's been responding to all this, what's going on right now. You know, the fact that people are being really supportive of the musicians who do their little webcast from home, and they're kicking into the tip jar, and all of these shakedown stream things I've been doing each week. We ask people to donate to a designated charity. The first week it was Music Cares, which is a great organization connected with the Recording Academy.
I applied for that. There's a COVID-19 Music Cares a grant that I applied for, but
right. Last night it was
and
another
everybody
organization.
Else.
Yeah, last night it was the Sweet Relief Musicians Fund, who are similar goals to Music Cares, but instead of coming from the industry, instead of coming from the Recording Academy, which is where Music Cares started, it's a real musician-to-musician thing. It started as a benefit for the wonderful singer-songwriter Victoria Williams when she got multiple sclerosis and had no insurance. And Victoria, who I have worked with a little bit and is an amazing person, after the benefit album that was made for her, of a lot of great artists covering her songs, did well enough for her to get treatment, she turned around and started the Sweet Relief Musicians Fund. And they work very peer-to-peer. You know, it's musicians helping musicians. And we raised a bunch of money for them last night, so I'm really happy about that. The generosity of people has been incredible. And if there's a good benefit from this horrible situation, one of them is that I think it's made us all so much more appreciative of what we have, appreciative of live music as a religion almost. You know, when we're deprived of it, we can't take it for granted anymore. And my hope is that when people come back and start going out to hear music again, their appreciation of it will be that much greater.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you the number of gigs that I've lost at this point, and now I don't even know how to say it. I mean, it's in my DNA to be doing my music, and yet I'm in my home with my dog. Thank goodness for Lillian, because I sing to her, and I get dressed every day. For every time I get dressed now, I know she's looking at me like, "Are you going to a gig?" I'm like, "No, I'm going to walk in the living room." and Rolf has been on the show, and we sang a little bit, and a couple other people I've talked with. We've tried to do some live music stuff, just the two of us on Zoom and stuff, and it's not quite there, but just having that connection is really important. And yes, there have been some amazing support, and I ask for donations for this show as well, and people have been really kind on my Venmo and my PayPal, and like I said yesterday, someone sent me a tripod, which I haven't figured out yet, but I will. And just little things like that, you know, that lets me know that people are out there and they care, and this, you know, me doing this, I've been wanting to do it for years, and I've done my own version of it, but then again, I didn't edit it, so I have all this content. But now it's been happening, I think it's been about a month, and people coast to coast and in different countries, and musicians and artists, and my friend Phyllis, who I would love to have on the show. Hi, Phyllis. And Melanie DeMore, and tomorrow night Steven. But it's connected a whole other community for me, and I'm connecting those, and it's a ripple effect. And to have you here tonight too, just is such a gift. I look forward to this every morning and every night, as does my mom, as does my brother, my sister, and other people say I wake up to you and I go to sleep to you. And you know, I'm glad to be side by side with you right now.
Yeah, no, it's great. I've been so impressed by the ingenuity with which people do things. There have been some really obviously this is all very low tech, although some people have made incredible things with what they have at their disposal. I mean, your thing here is so beautifully, you know, basic. The thing of you turning the screen with your guest on it toward the camera. I just love the way this works. And Jenna, I have to say, you are so good at this.
Thank you.
You're such a good host, and I think people should be writing to talent scouts at the networks and say, hey, NBC, you know, put a fifth hour on the Today Show.
I would love to do this. I would love. I mean, I've said Ellen, and then somebody said call Jimmy Fallon. I'm like, I'm ready. I mean, like people go, oh, maybe someday. I'm like, no, I'm ready. This is what this and singing and my juice, Jenna's Jazz and Juice Joint talk show. But
it's great. And like I said, you're a natural at it. I mean, you're such a great person to converse with, you know, over Chinese food at Red Farm. Oh. So this is just like an extension of that.
Are they open right now? Could you order from Red Farm if you wanted to?
You can do, you know, contactless pickup, and unfortunately I don't think they're delivering to Queens, but they are in the neighborhood. Yeah, they are doing delivery and pickup. So. Bless you on the Lower East Side or in the West Village where they have their other brand.
I'm going to switch gears really quickly. And yes, Melanie DeMore, I want you to come back this week if you would. Melanie DeMore, she said, and me too. I would never forget about you. But Gary, can we talk about your mom a little bit?
Yeah.
Because this is a real mom. My mom comes on every night, and I hope my mom is still here, Mama Grace. But your mom, please tell her story.
Right. First of all, back, you know, little love to the monkeys. That's my mom's thing.
How many monkeys did she have in the house?
Oh, they're all over the place. I'll have different guest monkeys if I come back on.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about that too.
Yeah. Well, this is amazing. I am right now in my childhood home, the house I grew up in from the time I was 4 years old. And one of the reasons I came back, I was always going to come back to New York. It was a matter of when. And sort of the determining factor was that my parents, who were then 89 for my mom and 93 for my dad, who had promised each other they were going to live out the rest of their lives in this house, which they loved, they decided they couldn't do that alone anymore. And neither was going to put the other in a nursing home. So they asked me if I would move back and be their primary caregiver, which, of course, was the greatest honor I could imagine and the greatest pleasure I could imagine. So I wound up taking care of them for the rest of their lives. What I didn't know was that they were both going to live to be 103. So it wound up being a nice long commitment. It was like it was the last 10 years of my dad's life and the last 14 years of my mom's life.
103.
I wouldn't have traded it for the world. Anyway, they were incredibly supportive, the most inspirational people I ever knew. You know, both refugees from Nazi Germany. And my mom's story is kind of a long story. I don't know if I want to.
We could do it another night.
Let's do it another night because that's like really that's like an episode to itself.
That's true. But just.
I'll tell you what. If you want to do a little research, look up Margaret Bergman Lambert on the Google or on Wikipedia, and her life was very well documented because she acquired a certain amount of fame, especially late in life. But an amazing person, and yeah, I'll definitely talk about her some more in the future.
So I don't want to pin you down to a particular night, but I kind of like the one more Saturday night thing with Gary.
It seems kind of appropriate, doesn't it?
One more Saturday night.
Or, you know, as Sinatra sang, Saturday night is the loneliest night of the week, and we can make it less lonely. So,
would you come back next Saturday night?
I will come back next Saturday night. I have to give a shout out. I just saw my darling Jody Kilgore just joined a little while ago. Jody, I love you. Anyway, she's someone also very dear to me, someone also from my Bay Area life.
Do I know Jody?
I don't think you know Jody. Jody worked with me at Bill Graham Presents early 90s. And then we have not seen each other for years in person, but we rediscovered each other on the old Facebook and have been corresponding regularly and flirting madly online. Anyway,
hi, Jody.
She's an amazing, kind, sweet, dear person, and I love her.
Well, she just said, I love you too.
Aw. All right. Well, yeah. This is you know, Facebook has its incredibly infuriating aspects to it, and
we know what they are. They're the obvious ones.
Yeah, but if you use it right and you don't let yourself be driven crazy by it, this is what happens. You get to talk to Sybil Savage, and you get to talk to Paul Hansen, and you get to talk to Jenna Mammina, and I get to talk to Jody Kilgore, and you know, it's just, you can filter out a lot of the crap on Facebook and use it as a hub of community, and if you do that, it can be really valuable. That's, you know, social media is as good as you make it, I think.
It's great. I know I know I get stuck in the time suck, and now right now I'm like, oh well, okay, I just cleaned out this cupboard and I did my stuff today, and I'm going to go on Facebook and I'm going to see who's going to be there, and doing this again, this 11/11, it's just been such a gift because, yeah, like Melanie DeMore just said, how about a Mother's Day thing? Yeah, we'll definitely do a Mother's Day. Mama Grace will be there. Any mother that wants to come on, anybody that wants to come on. People go, oh, when I ask them, do you be on my show? They're like, oh, but I'm not a musician, or I'm not a star, or I'm not a whatever. Everybody's got something to contribute, and we all can learn something about each other, and that's why I'm doing this. So I'm honored that you want to be here, and next Saturday night, you guys have more stories. I'll be wearing tie-dye. More of my friend Patty's tie-dye, and Lillian will be in her tie-dye. And you, what an awesome show tonight. Thank you, Joseph Romer. Thank you. I just looked. Oh, yeah. Sybil had just looked your mom up, and she said, wow, exclamation point.
Yeah, it's a hell of a story. And
it's a hell of a story.
Take some time to tell it.
Good. All right. Well, next Saturday night.
All right.
Whatever you want to talk about, We'll talk. We'll eat food. Because next Saturday night we would have been in New Orleans together.
That's right. Next week, Dead and Company would have been playing New Orleans at Jazz Fest.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure I would have been there.
You would have been there. And then probably at my show afterwards, who knows would have showed up.
That's right.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
So next year, 2021, Jazz Fest.
It's like, at Passover, they always say next year in Jerusalem. For us, it's next year on Frenchman Street.
Yeah. And DBA will be gone.
I hear that, yeah.
Unless I have a feeling someone's going to buy it.
That's the thing. When you hear about these places in jeopardy, I think New Orleans has such a strong musicians community. Yeah, they're not going to let a place like that just turn into some horrible, chain store or something like that. So,
I literally have some friends that have been talking about it, banding together and possibly buying it. But, maybe there are other plans already. Who knows? But that would be a great coup for Frenchman Street to keep it rolling.
Well, one of the great inspiring things in New Orleans that's happened in recent years was the band Galactic bought Tipitinas.
Yeah.
And which is absolutely one of the most precious clubs in that town, and musicians who have had enough success stepped up and did that. And there's talk about the Village Vanguard being in trouble, and we cannot even think about letting that happen here in New York.
No.
If I had to name the most important jazz club in the history of the world, I don't think there'd be any dispute for me that it's the Village Vanguard. And I've had many of the most transformative experiences of my life. And there was an interview with the owner, who's the daughter of Lorraine Gordon, who passed away a couple of years ago, saying she doesn't know. She was not being totally pessimistic about it, but she's saying this is an incredible blow, and how much money it's just going to cost to maintain the place while it's closed, and then get a running start and get it going again when it can get going again. But I cannot imagine the musicians who have benefited from the Village Vanguard letting that happen. Musicians who have played there, musicians who have been inspired by that place, musicians who learned their craft just by sitting in that incredible sacred dungeon and hearing that amazing. I have never been to a place that inspired musicians to play so far above what you thought were their highest capabilities in the Village Vanguard.
I can think of a few shows that you and I have been to the Village Vanguard. We saw, my brain just went, because Dirk Richardson just showed up.
Hey, Dirk. Now, why? I got to ask Dirk, why does someone even have to show up? Why you even got to? That's a private joke. But anyway,
we saw Bill Frisell. We saw Bill Frisell together.
Yeah, many times.
And
I've probably seen Bill there more than anybody in various his own as a leader, and with that amazing trio with Paul Motion and Joe Lavano many times. I can tell you the first time I went to the Village Vanguard, I was 21, and I went there and saw Pharoah Sanders with just the most phenomenal band. Pharoah now being, I guess, around 80. He's more, his playing is a little more reflective and a little more, he does more ballads and a little more gentle. 1972, Pharoah Sanders was as ferocious a force of nature as I've ever experienced in music. And he has this incredible band, Joe Bonner on piano, Cecil McBee on bass, Hannibal Marvin Peterson on trumpet, a couple of percussionists. It was like this incredible tsunami of sound, and I stayed for both sets and was as blown away as I've ever been by any single musical experience. And what happened when we left the club that night was the greatest visual metaphor for great jazz I've ever seen. It was like an early spring night. It was a little cool outside. And when the audience came up those steps and came out onto 7th Avenue South, everybody had steam coming off them.
Ooh.
The entire audience was literally steaming from that music. I've always said that. That's like, you couldn't get like a Hollywood special effects guy to create that. It was so beautiful. And That's what the Village Vanguard. I've always felt like I've had steam coming off me when I left the Village Vanguard, whether I did or not. So, if the Village Vanguard is in any jeopardy, we gotta dig in. We gotta save it.
Dirk just said, "Man, why I gotta answer that?"
This is a little homage to Ornette.
Okay.
So.
And tell me the Miles, what he said to you tonight.
What
Miles Boysen said, "My worlds just collided."
Miles Boysen. I was thinking I had Miles Davis in my mind's eye.
Miles Boysen said, "My worlds just collided," and he said something shrunk or something. I don't know. He made a sound. He wrote something. Go back and check it out. Whatever he said.
I'll check it out later. Miles Boysen is a mutual friend of Jenna's.
I love him. I love what they're doing right now. It's so great. He and Jill, so cool. He's
a fantastic musician, producer, engineer. Played with him a bit with Henry Kaiser. Had some incredible experiences. And that's, again, Miles is someone I have not seen in person in a long time. But every now and then we cross paths here.
I thought maybe he'd show up tonight, but maybe they're playing they might be doing something at their place too.
Yeah.
But, well, I'm a little intimidated that Dirk Richardson is here, but I'm also super proud.
Oh,
just because. Oh, I know I'm not, but I am. Now I'm sort of shy. But
well, it's always good to interact with Dirk on any level. Another of my favorite people. For those who don't know, who are not in the Bay Area, Dirk is spent a lot of time as one of the Bay Area's foremost music journalists. If you read some of the other music journalists in the Bay Area, you might think he was one of the Bay Area's only music journalists. He was a cut above a lot of them. No, there are other great ones too. But Dirk was always one of my favorites, writing for the San Francisco Bay Guardian, occasionally the Chronicle, and lately he's been doing more radio at KPFA. He's got a great radio show on KPFA every Thursday night. On a night also with the legendary Bonnie Simmons. Yeah. Their shows are back to back, and that's about as good as radio gets these days. So check that out. You can stream KPFA anywhere. You don't have to be in the Bay Area.
And I've been invited on that show multiple times throughout the last 20 years, and he's been, if there's anyone that supports me at all, it's Dirk Richardson. He really has. He just said, to quote Ken Nordine, "My ears are blushing." I'm blushing too. No,
well, don't let it go to your head, Dirk.
I'm so grateful for Dirk and what he's written for me. I've used his quotes for years, and having me on his show in all my different, he'll call out, "Dirk, can I be on the show?" "Sure, who do you want to be on with?" "Oh, I think I'm going to bring on Andre Bush." "Oh, I think I'm going to bring on Jenna and the Charmers." He's welcomed me every single time I've ever asked, and I'm just beyond grateful. And
also, at one time in his life, Dirk arguably could have been the only person I know of who had equal amounts of expertise in jazz criticism and making an ice cream soda.
Oh yeah, Ozzy's.
Because he ran the soda fountain at Ozzy's, the late great Ozzy's in Berkeley, and made a fine ice cream soda.
Yes, he did.
Enjoyed them many times.
Yes, he did. I owe Dirk a story that I've never told him. I'll have to tell it. Maybe I'll tell it on screen, but one of these days for sure. And he throws a hell of a Halloween party.
I've never been to one of Dirk's Halloween parties, but I've seen the pictures.
Halloween party.
Yeah. I'm sure.
And seems to do, he and Robin seem to do some baking also. They know food.
Yes.
They know
food. Dirk, if Dirk ever recommends a restaurant to you, just don't ask questions.
Bonnie worked at Ozzy's?
That's right. Bonnie Simmons worked there for a while,
really?
too.
I didn't know that. But he just said Bonnie worked there, too. I never knew that.
Incredible.
Wow.
Yeah. So what else can we say about Dirk?
Do you have another hat?
Huh?
Do you have another hat?
I do.
I mean, there are 18 people that have floated on right now, so.
It's so exactly like a Diana Ross show, I can't believe it. Head count. This is important.
Head count?
Head count. Head count is another amazing organization. And it's a peer-to-peer musician to musician thing, musician to fan thing. Headcount was founded by some musicians, primarily from the jam band scene, and their idea is encouraging voter registration, voter activism, voter participation, specifically aimed at music fans. They have signed on with various bands to have tables at their shows during tours to register voters, and they go to all the big festivals and they register voters. And in 2018, the year that we flipped the house, Headcount registered an insanely large number of voters. And they're not just about registering people. They are nominally nonpartisan, but they're also doing a lot to fight against voter suppression. And, let's say we had an insane president who wanted to destroy the post office so people couldn't vote by mail. Just a wacky notion. Headcount helps to spear lawsuits and things like that to preserve voting rights, to try to have purges of voter rolls avoided and things like that. And they've succeeded a bunch of times. So it's not just that, hey, do your thing, register to vote. They really try to push it more into activism and education about voting rights and all that stuff. So I love them. They're incredible people. And if we ever get to go to rock concerts again, chances are there will be a Headcount table at a show by a band you love. They have toured on every Dead and Company tour. They've toured with Wilco. If you go to headcount.org, you'll see a lot of the bands that support them. They've made some inroads in the hip-hop world, which is really important because people in the hip-hop community are speaking to people who are most likely to be disenfranchised by voter suppression. So have amazing respect for Headcount and have worked with them and helped raise money for them. And so they're another outfit that really, they're probably going to be getting less donations now because everyone is contributing to COVID-19 related charities. But this kind of is COVID-19 related because if our voting is disrupted by this and, the voter suppression crowd tries to capitalize on that, Headcount's going to need all the help it can get. So,
well, thank you for mentioning that. That made me think of the time that we went to, we saw Fish.
Yeah.
And at not Concord, but the down south. Shoreline. And Greenpeace was there.
Yeah.
And my friend Mike Hayes, who ran the Greenpeace for Fish for years, when I saw him backstage, he and I went to prom together, our senior prom together. And I remember Trey said something, because Trey and I worked with Michael Ray and the Cosmic Crew. And then I got to see Trey backstage, and then Trey and Michael were like, how do you know her? He's like, oh, I played with her in New Orleans. And then Trey asked Mike, how do you know? Oh, we went to prom together. We've known each other since we were 6. But just that moment right there, it's that important. This is that important. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah,
no, they're great. And because they can't have a presence at concerts right now, they have to reach out for funds and get their message out through other means.
So that's a question that I talk about, and Rolf and I have talked about it. And I'm curious what your thought is, maybe timing-wise, but what do you think? How do you see the next 6, 8, 10 months as far as what I do for a living and what you support for a living?
Boy, I have no really informed opinion on that. I think it's going to be a long haul before large-scale concerts can be happening again. Some people are saying as late as early next year.
2021, yeah. That's what I believe.
But I'm encouraged by the fact that most sane people are abiding by the urgent message to stay home. And what I'm hoping is that testing can be stepped up. And once testing is stepped up, the more people who are in the clear, will be able to move about a little more freely. Although, if the people who aren't tested are out and about, you could be running the risk of infection again. But I'm hoping that things can be a little more normal by the fall, and then more fully normal early next year. But it's anybody's guess. In the meantime, musicians should be. I love it.
And I sing through my mask. I can sing through my mask.
Yes, it sounds pretty. It's kind of like a windscreen for a mic.
A windscreen for me, exactly.
Yeah. Carry your own windscreen with you. You don't have to look for one. Musicians should be using their ingenuity as you are, as all my friends who are doing house broadcasts. It's also I've also been interested in seeing how people are getting the technology a little better.
Mm-hmm.
If you get a better microphone, you're going to sound better through your computer than through the computer mic, and all that stuff.
Yeah, so, but I like what I'm doing.
No, I'm not criticizing your thing. But,
I know, but I for instance, I did have a tripod, but I love my candle with my little bracelet.
Yeah, that's great.
Because then I can move you around. Gary's back here, and now You
can have your way with me.
Yeah, but I can be the camera girl also. I'm this.
No, it's great. No, it's you. This is a small bit of genius.
But for 3 weeks, I was holding the camera. I was holding my phone, and then I'd get off, and I'd be like, "Shit, my wrists hurt really bad, or my fingers hurt." So I was tying it and doing all this stuff, and I go, "Wait a minute, I have my little bracelet." And Jimmy Kimmel has his big screen and people come on, but yeah, it's high tech, baby. Boom, bada boom, bada boom, boom.
Actually, the coolest, one of the coolest things I've seen was Jorma Kaukonen has been doing some acoustic guitar stuff from his place in Ohio, the first Fur Peace Ranch, and then Jack Cassidy, his partner of going on 60 years. Has a huge big screen TV. It must be like a 75-inch big screen TV on the wall of his living room, and Jack gets up on a little step stool and sits there and plays along with Jorma.
Oh, that's cool.
And so it's like a hot tuna show from 2,000 miles apart, and it really works. It's because those guys can read each other's minds anyway. So even if there's a little bit of delay between their connection, it just sounds like hot tuna. So I love the fact that musicians are finding all these workarounds and keep doing that, and keep building an audience. And also, if you are a fan of musicians at this moment in time, don't just stream their music through Spotify. Buy their CDs at Bandcamp or wherever they're offering it, or if they offer direct downloads. Kick them down some money that way. Buy records. Don't just get music for free. This has been one of my, I love the convenience of the internet and how, easy it makes so many things. But I also think it has diminished people's appreciation of music in a really destructive way. The analogy I used, I was actually talking about this with John Mayer. We were talking about how the early Grateful Dead tape collectors, how resourceful they were, and how they had to seek each other out, and how they had to find the choice stuff. And it was a real analog process. People would write a letter and put it in the mail and say, "Do you have this show from this date?" So and now you can find any Grateful Dead show that is available in recording, and with a keystroke you have it downloaded. And that's wonderful in one way, but in another way, it really, I think the fact that it takes no effort also diminishes people's ability to appreciate the effort that went into the music. And my analogy is that, being a record collector and a music lover that has to go seek out your music, it's like looking for water in the desert with a divining rod. And having that instant access is like going to the kitchen and turning on a faucet, and that's how you get your water.
Exactly.
The people in the desert with a divining rod are going to have an inherently deeper appreciation of water. So I really hope that people come to the aid of musicians by buying their damn music right now.
Yes, thank you. Michelle Taylor, I just want to say hello to her as well. She's a manager. She manages Matthew Whitaker. Have you seen Matthew perform?
Yeah, I haven't seen him live, but I know him. Yeah.
He's fabulous. I met him at a party at Alan and Pat Harris's one night up in Harlem. A great night in Harlem, maybe 3 years ago, and sat with him and his father. And what is this? What are you doing right now is an indication of the changes that social media is making in our world. In 10 months, we may have concerts on social media, and someone will have figured out a way to get paid gigs.
Yes.
That's what my friend Phyllis is saying. Yeah, I mean it's all up to us learning more.
Yeah, no, that's what I said about musicians becoming more resourceful and ingenious,
and not being gatekeeper about it. You know, I mean, I want everybody on this. Michelle, I invite you to come on anytime. Please, please, please consider, and anybody that I know or have a connection to, because I want to connect people. I want this community is strong, and it's what it's about. And now we really need to support each other in every way. And I appreciate what you said. It's true. Selling our music anymore, when people go, oh, can I buy your stuff on, I have a CD player, but can I buy it on iTunes? And I go, yeah, and then I'll make 9 cents, or, you know, but I have this hard copy CD, and if you have, I still have a cassette player in my car, but, and cassettes are coming back, you know, the kids are digging the cassettes these days. So,
those crazy kids.
Those crazy, wacky kids. Those kids. A friend of mine, she has a 16-year-old daughter, and they were making something today that needed evaporated milk. There's some dessert they were making. And the mom goes, here, open this. Get the can opener out. She goes, what do you mean, the can opener? She didn't know what a can opener was. She didn't know how to use a hand can opener. Yeah. So she videoed that and then showed it on. Yeah, that was a good one. But, ooh, this is Mark van Wachenhagen taking a solo right here. Oh, I just passed it. Never mind. But, sorry, I'll play it another time. But, yeah, well, Gary, thank you. Thank you,
Anna,
thank you, thank you.
This has been so great. So glad to be here. My phone is just about to run out of juice, and
right.
I'm too far from the outlet to plug it in, so I guess I'll say goodnight if you're still going to talk to folks for a bit.
I'll say goodnight in a minute. I usually go down to 16. There's 16 people, so when it's at 11, then I say goodnight.
All right. Well, I'm going to jump off right now, but
okay.
I love you. I'm so happy to be with you. I'll see you next Saturday night.
And stop by tomorrow night, because Stephen Bernstein will be here.
Oh, God. Yeah, I'll have to heckle him.
Cool. Thank you. Right. Thank you. I love you. Thank you.
Love you. Bye.
Good night. Now, how am I supposed to go to sleep after this? Lillian just looked at me like, Mom, really? When are we going to bed? When are we going to go for our walk? Gary Lambert. Bi-coastal Gary Lambert. Thanks, you guys, so much for being here tonight. Just such a gift. And tomorrow, let's see, tomorrow Tuck and Patty play, and that's my main musical appointment tomorrow. And I don't have any students until Monday. But yes, tomorrow morning we have a special guest, I think. Let me make sure. I'm going to look at my phone, because they responded while we were on. Can do the morning one. Okay, so tomorrow morning, good night, Deborah, sweet dreams. If you're an animal lover, or if you have an animal, cats in particular, Dr. Katie Summers is going to be on, and we're going to talk COVID and your animal, and animals in general. Thank you, Jody. Thank you for coming on. Baby, so you're not on Facebook, but you're able to see this. Gary Lambert. Gary, could you post, I know it's easy, Grateful Dead YouTube thing, but maybe you could post the link. Hello, Ellen Hoffman, who's also going to be on the show soon. The show ran late tonight, Ellen, that's why I can't call you. Wow, you guys, we started at 11:11, and it's 12:52. Phyllis, can we do a social distance this week? I'll come up to your window and just wave and say hello. I would love to do that. I would love, love, love just to come over and connect. We can FaceTime through the window. And Phyllis, if you want to come on the show and you could teach us how to draw something. Phyllis is an amazing artiste. I'm dancing now. So Ellen Hoffman, piano. Jody is on Facebook. Sassy Sharon. Sharon's not on Facebook. My hair's not so sassy right now. But thanks, you guys. One more Saturday night. Jenna Mammina. What are you cooking tomorrow? What's for brunch? Have you been listening to Jazz Fest? Hasn't that been fun? In its own way. It's all good. Thanks, you guys. I would stick on. I'll stay on. I'll stay on till there's 11. So if nobody else floats on. But I wish you all a beautiful. I know my hair's fine, but we have a friend named Sharon, and she and I both cut our hair at the same time because we're sassy. So Dirk, if you're still here, anytime. Ellen Hoffman, when do you want to come on the show? Julie Luce, I love you. I found the CD for you, and I'm going to send that to you this week. I need to do a good post office run because some other people ordered CDs and ordered some salve. And thank you for those that have contributed to my Patreon and to my Venmo and PayPal. And I need to get Zelly. I didn't do it yet. I'm not so, that part's just not my jam. But I appreciate the donations, and I'm just still blown away at tonight. It's as good as anything. It's all good. As my dad would say, it's all good. Some's real good and some's not so good. Wednesday in the evening, right? 8:11 your time, Pacific Standard Time. Wednesday's beautiful. I don't have anybody for Wednesday. I know that for sure. So Wednesday night, we will have pianist and all-around super cool human being Ellen Hoffman. Tomorrow morning we have Dr. Katie Summers. Tomorrow night, Stephen Bernstein. So Katie will be up in Lake County. Stephen Bernstein's in Nyack, New York. Evening, you got it. Good night, Joseph. Thank you so much. 11:11 Wednesday, Ellen Hoffman. And then Monday morning, my friend Elodie, who's an incredible painter. Oh, wait till you see. Super cool. Wow. So we have some stuff going on. Just going to keep it rolling. And hopefully Melanie will come back this week. And I'm at 11 people, 11:11 with Jenna. And I'm going to go walk my dog. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a beautiful night. Love hard.